And we're live. Oh, camera's a little bit fucked up, but we're live. Hi, everybody. It is the 7th of September, 2023. It is episode 170 of my live chat. My name is Luke Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. How you doing out there? Yeah. We're in the middle of the dumbest and weirdest and most awful news cycle. I won't say in MMA history, but in recent times. Yeah, this is a crazy-ass, stupid, very weird life we all live. So I guess we're going to talk about it today. Let's see what's on the docket. Anything 293 related, Izzy Strickland related. Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury just had their press conference. That was a little bit it was big and grandiose. It was a little bit boring. Not boring. Boring is not quite the unremarkable. Maybe it's a better word for it. Not quite what I thought it would be, I guess. Neither here nor there. So there's that. And by the way, Dylan Dennis getting sued. I mean, the complaint just came out. Stephen Morocco, MMA Fighting, just posted it. So that's craziness there too. Lots of stuff happening. So do me a favor if you'd be so kind. Yes, you can give a thumbs up here on the video. That'd be awesome. You can subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you nothing. It's really easy and you can participate. And we'll go for about an hour with the free questions, and then we'll do anything paid you have at the end. People were asking about last week. Why didn't the audio get posted? Is because the recorded version was a disaster. I couldn't post it. So this time I'm at home. I'm in my home studio. I think everything will be fine. So this will go up tonight. That's no big deal. But when that thing last week, like the last 40 minutes of it was choppy on my end. I mean, maybe it wasn't on the video, but the way it was recorded, it was kind of messed up. So I couldn't really use it. But this one should be fine. This one should be A-okay. All right? All right. So yeah, there you go. Oh, real quickly, take the poll. We have a poll up right now where we're asking, very simply, anyone taking the upset in the main event? MMA is crazy. You never know. Doesn't seem likely that Strickland will win, but I've seen crazier shit. That's for sure. So, all right, let's get it. All right. Let me see if I can slightly turn this thing. There we go. Better. Look at that. That's a little bit more even, huh? Looks a little nicer. Update. I am seeing a doctor now for my sleep. Has it improved? Somewhat. Everyone's come out of the network or the woodwork with their suggestions, including taking this medicine. I am on a couple of different ones now, prescribed ones, but also the magnesium glycinate. I'm on that now as well, which is not prescription. You can get that over the counter. I think theanine is how you pronounce it. Theanine. I'm not sure you pronounce it. That as well, and some other stuff too. So we shall see how it goes. The basic problem that I have is I wake up at 3 every morning, and I can't go back to bed until 5:30, but then I have to get up again at 7 for my daughter, so it's a problem. But we're working on it. We're working on it to the extent that any of you care. All right. With that in mind, let's get these questions up and get this process started, shall we? Here we are. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Luke, how do you control anxiety when things get out of control? What do you do to battle it? Well, this is about the only time in my life my anxiety has gotten the better of me. Usually I'm able to handle it. Dude, like anything else, it's just really lifestyle choices more than anything else. Getting regular sleep, to the extent you need any counseling, you can get it, but getting exercise. There was someone had done a meta-analysis of 1,000 studies. Did you guys see this? It came out this week. Where did it get published? I don't think it was JAMA. Maybe it was Lancet. I had to go back and see, but it was 1,000 studies in a meta-analysis that basically had shown that exercise was in certain cases as beneficial, and in other cases even more beneficial than therapy. I don't think it's a one or the other particular kind of equation, but it can be very helpful. But I'll tell you right now, I can't get my anxiety under control now. It is getting the best of me, quite candidly. So when I figure it out, I'll let you know. But usually I've been able to handle it just by having better lifestyle choices, talking through problems, not holding on to issues, kind of the basic stuff, to be honest with you. All right. How was the reception of Las Cafeteras, the women's soccer team in Colombia. How was it? I will tell you, that's the most I've ever seen the country embrace their female soccer team. They were on television commercials. They were in advertisements everywhere. People were wearing the jerseys. The jerseys were prominently featured in Colombia is an Adidas country. Like, you can find Nike there, but it's an Adidas country. Like, all of them had all that stuff on display, and I'd never, ever seen that before. So I'd actually say pretty big. Pretty big. I don't know what the television ratings were, but anecdotally, it was way more than I had ever seen before. And I've been going for about 10 years. Let's see. This one's about the DC area. I'll skip that one. All right, Luke, what works for you? Oh, here. What works for you and what doesn't for you regarding your sleep problems? Well, candidly, not much is working. Not much is working. The medication is helping a little bit. A little bit. I can't stop waking up at 3. I cannot stop. Exercise, check. Eat carbs as your last meal, check. But don't eat 3 hours before eating, check. Don't drink water or any other liquids 2 hours before sleeping, check. Take a hot bath before sleep, check. Don't have any blue light or any light, read a book before you go to bed, check. Make it nice and cold, check. I mean, all the kinds of things that you can do for sleep hygiene, I'm now doing. It's making a little bit of difference, but not much of one. So to what you can attribute that to, again, stress, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I would imagine that's the best explanation, but it's a little harder to tell you what's working because I have not solved the problem yet. But it has to be the case that if you use these better sleep hygiene practices over time, that it results in better outcomes over time. But I guess we'll have to see. Luke, if Izzy were to somehow lose to Strickland, and this is an important caveat, it wasn't controversial, should he get an immediate rematch? Okay, so 2 different questions. Should he or will he? Should he? No, I don't think he should. And that's me talking, a guy who's been a big supporter of his career. He lost to Pereira and then got it back, which was big. But if you lose 2 times in 3 fights, you're not, in my judgment, entitled to an immediate rematch, especially in this particular case if it's controversial. Now, I suspect, since this would be a huge upset if he were to get it, that they probably would, in fact, run it back. But I would be okay if they didn't. It's just that, like, from the division standpoint, like, what would the UFC want to do with Strickland as champion? Would they want to give him Hamzat next? Would they want to give him Dricus next? How much would that sell? I still think that they would probably believe that at that point, they would probably have a rivalry, right? A real rivalry, a Sean and Izzy as a polar opposite kind of pair, not just in like the way they're presented to the world, but competitively now, right? Because here's the issue. Like, they're obviously very different people as promotional entities, but most people don't believe it's a competitive rivalry. We'll see what happens on Saturday, but that's the prevailing belief. You turn that on its head and you got a whole new different kind of scenario. So I suspect that if it is a situation where Strickland wins, yeah, my door's locked, because here comes the Tukester, and it wasn't controversial. No, I don't. I'm of the belief, man, where if you're losing 2 title fights out of 3 of them, you I don't care who you are, you shouldn't be getting immediate rematches. That would be crazy. But I tend to think that he probably would, just given how the business operates. So, different set of circumstances, but yeah. Yeah, Tukster's home. Let's see this. There we are. Ooh, whoops. There we go. All right. Let's go to this next one. Luke, how much of an improvement do you think Izzy has made in his BJJ with all the training he's been doing with Craig Jones? Could it be a useful trick up his sleeve for his last couple of fights as he gets older and fighters start to figure out his current style? Do you think it's even possible for Izzy to make a significant change in his game at this point? For example, at the end of Poatan versus Izzy 1, Izzy could have shot for a takedown to prevent the ref from stopping the fight. But I think it's just so ingrained. That's a good point. But I think it's just so ingrained in his mind that he should stay on the feet that it didn't even cross his mind to shoot. That's a great point. His approach to MMA might just be too striking focused to make a significant change in his style. That's probably true. So you're asking, like, what impact Craig Jones can make? Well, like, you understand what Craig Jones is trying to teach people. Craig Jones is trying to teach I don't know if this is the best way to explain it. I'm not even sure how true this is on what I'm about to say, but I'm trying to think of a helpful way to understand it. It's almost like Craig Jones is teaching a hybrid style of grappling that is between catch wrestling and jiu-jitsu. They're just calling it jiu-jitsu, but Craig Jones is trying to teach people about the value of actual control, pinning, Turks, half Nelsons, full, um, you know, uh, any number of different tricks that you can employ to actually pin someone either on their back or actually on their chest. Either way, you can kind of keep them wrist controls, different kinds of wrist rides. Now they're not the reason why it's not catch wrestling is catch wrestling has a lot of like pain submissions, and it's a real brutal form. It's not exactly that, although the methods of control can be painful, but it's not exactly that. It's still sort of jiu-jitsu based in its approach to submissions and chokes and everything else. But it's a lot of a focus on that, a little bit more like the Dagestani style of grappling. And so, if you just look defensively at what Craig Jones has been doing for a guy like Volkanovski, where he's been using Sumigashi to stuff some of Makhachev's takedowns and how much he was able to nullify Makhachev's grappling. I guess, there was obviously Makhachev was able to get to the back. He's a naturally bigger guy, but, a lot of what he does was nullified. I think, you have that. Now, the thing is, in Sean's particular case, I just don't know how relevant these considerations even are. I guess we'll see. This is much more relevant for a situation like Hamzat or Bo Nickel, should it ever come to that, right? So that's really not where we are. But I do think your point about him like not having the situational, not even awareness, but the situational instinct to shoot, I think that's a good point. And I think that's probably always going to be some kind of a limit. There's always going to be trade-offs in one direction or another where they have to give up certain things to get another. And that's going to be a lot of like just ingrained competitive preference. You're probably right about that. That will probably limit him. The question is not that. The question is, I think for a guy like Sean, if Sean wraps up with him and now they're tussling and now if he actually even finds himself on top, are there methods of control that he can use to keep Sean pinned? If he's underneath, are there methods of escape that a guy like Craig is very good at teaching? Submission defense, what to do in like really very bad situations. Like for some of the, you could tell that they, for example, when Volkanovski fought Ortega, they had drilled what to do in certain submissions, like what kind of physical cues to call out, shoulders, putting the shoulders back, that kind of a thing. So I think he can be very beneficial when someone comes around with like a very new way of looking at the sport, even for a more older or advanced athlete in the way that Izzy is, or Sean Strickland, or really anybody else. A lot can be gained with a brand new approach. It's just that when everyone has the same information, basically, and then you get older, there's really not much you can tweak at that point. So, yeah. If I had the option to move to any EU country to live and work, Spain, yeah. Let's see. Have you heard about Fernand Lopez becoming a matchmaker of PFL Europe? No. Seems to have largely flown under the radar, if true. I'd have to double check, but I was actually talking with someone in the PFL this week and about a bunch of stuff, and definitely that's not at all what I heard. No. So I'll go back and double check, but I'm going to tell you that that's probably not true. You might be asking, does he have undue influence over some of the matchmaking? That might be a different thing. But I guess I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you saying becoming a matchmaker for PFL? Are you saying like in a formal capacity? Like in a formal capacity, he definitely isn't. In an informal capacity, that's sort of a different kind of conversation. But my understanding is that's not the case. Not the case at all. Okay, next. Luke, the antitrust lawsuit court date is now set for April 8th, 2024. What effect do you think this will have on UFC 300? None. The Cajun Johnson case would be the one, everything after 2017 up until today. That case is headed for discovery, but I don't think they're in the early stages of that. And UFC 300 is still going to be an extravaganza. I mean, even this week, Dana White was talking about the PFL, like, they run business like a charity and whatnot. Like, he wasn't as disparaging as he had been in the past, but he was still kind of bragging, not about their market concentration and power, but just about how inept and incapable everyone else is. And they sort of like kind of loosely attribute it to all the things that they do right, some of which is true. But of course, what the plaintiffs are saying in the fighter lawsuit is it's more than that you can attribute it, in fact, to business practices that limit competition. But what effect will it have on UFC 300? I don't think it'll have any. Okay. Here we go. Luke, you've talked about the influence of culture on combat sports participation before. I want to inquire about the economic influences. I don't have the data in hand, but wealth or lack of wealth appears to be a significant indicator of participation in combat sports, with wealth inequality projected to increase worldwide. You see this driving the overall rates of participatory rates of combat sports worldwide. I think you're trying to, in good faith, but I think you're trying to take an argument about late stage capitalism and then trying to infer what kind of downstream sports implications there might be. I have no fucking idea. Yeah. I mean, yes, it is obviously quite true that people of humble or meager means often are attracted to combat sports in general, actually, but certainly combat sports more than that. But it's also true, like, for example, I just saw France is playing Ireland, right? It was some of the national team play. And, France has this incredible system where if you're from any country, like all these countries who were not client states, but colonially occupied by them, in many cases, they're eligible for, repatriation, immigration benefits, and also participation with French athletics. And, they've got world-class facilities and world-class training. So you've got like this, incredible pool of talent from which to pull. And then on top of it, you've got world-class training facilities. Like, it is true as a mechanism of who gets recruited and who has the kind of, gusto to pursue it. People of hard scrabble backgrounds are often find themselves in these roles. But it is also true that, some exceptions here or there, in general, in sports, world-class facilities for those kinds of people are going to produce better outcomes. I mean, this is quite obvious, but like, what does worldwide, like, what does the Gini coefficient going up do for sports participatory rates? Fuck all if I know, Luke, you've mentioned many times if you're going to walk out MMA, be Big Mouth Strikes Again by the Smiths. However, I've never heard you explain why you chose that song in particular. Also, you never struck me as a fan of the Smiths or Morrissey. Not enough chugs. You know what I mean? Mostly it was because at the time in which the story has kind of stayed the same. I don't know if the answer would be the same anymore if I was asked it, but there was a time in MMA where this was basically, back when the UFC and everybody else was doing like new metal face the pain crap, and like everything was aggro, in your face, blah, just constant, just everyone's bitter all the time. The lyrics of the song are, brutal and violent, but it's got this sort of, relative to Stem's Face the Pain, it's got this sort of, very beautiful melody to a degree. And so it was this contrast. You got the bite of, someone saying, let me pull up the lyrics for this so you guys can see for yourself. Strikes Again. It's a great song. Here we go. Here we go. Let's switch this up. All right. Look. So, sweetness, I was only joking when I said I'd like to smash every tooth in your head. Sweetness, I was only joking when I said by rights you should be bludgeoned in your bed. And now I know how Joan of Arc felt. It was this atmospherics that you see here of brutality that is written. That's not, I'm not here to say that the song doesn't have more significant or deeper meaning, but that it used this imagery, and yet in contrast, it wasn't Cannibal Corpse, like where it's roll all the time. You know, there was this dichotomy. I kind of liked that at the time in which I was watching MMA, or the time in which I first got asked that. Everything was just fucking aggro, in your face, blah. And I kind of had enough of it. But I do like the Smiths. I mean, How Soon Is Now is a fantastic song. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Smiths expert by any stretch, but I like them. What would be next for Taito Ivasa? Beating Volkov would be a good win. That'd be a good win, man. Volkov is like, you know, just kind of outside that Gon, Aspinall, Pavlovich territory. He's a little bit outside of that, but he's kind of hovering. You know, if you're not ready for that, he'll be the first to discover it. So that would put him in a good, strong, elite space. But you know, to me, it's not like what if he gets his ass kicked the whole fight, excuse me, and then pulls off like what Derek Lewis does, where he just leaps into range and just fucking pops him. I don't know how much that would prove. I think what I'm looking to see is what can he prove? What can he like verifiably prove with skill development and getting better and everything else like that? What can he do to like actually make a difference there? Yeah, here we go. You guys ever seen this? Nerd wax. Sounds like something BC puts on his balls. Hold on. Let's put this on. You put it on your glasses and it helps you stay on your face. That's what they say. But to answer the question about Tuivasa, yeah, I'm not a win. I can see scenarios where he could win and not do the kinds of things that I'm curious to see if he can do. What I'm looking to see is like what kind of ceiling does he actually have? The Pavlovich fight, I know he took it, you know, under less than ideal circumstances, but this one is much more ideal. So let's see what he can put together. Best 3 advices. Advices is not a word, but best 3 pieces of advice you've ever gotten in your life. Save your money and put it into 401k. That's one. It's been a good one. I'll just give you one. A good one. A lot of people say, don't pursue your passion, because if you pursue your passion, it might corrupt your passion, or you might, you know, you won't go far because you were better suited for something else and it will blow up in your face. And that's true and it's not true. But I think here is what I would say about it. If you're not good at your passion, yeah, you probably shouldn't do it for a living. Like if the thing that you love is really just a hobby that you've got, you know, some skill at or whatever, but it's not, you can't really earn a living off of it without just incredible sacrifice and, or, you know, being destitute through long periods of your life, then you should probably rethink it. But what I would say is the overarching theme would be get good at something, and then whatever that is, you should follow that. You have to develop a skill. If you're lucky enough to develop a skill through your passion, well, then you're in good shape. And then I don't see what the problem would be with pursuing your passion. So it's not a question of do it or don't, but you have to really be very, very clear-eyed about what you have to do. You have to develop skills. You have to develop a skill set around a particular kind of exercise or a form of expertise or field that is monetizable, that has lasting value, and that you have demonstrated ability in. And if you don't have demonstrated ability, go to what you have demonstrated ability in. Because just loving something and then not getting very far in it and being broke all the time or whatever, this is not a path to like happiness. This is not a path to being a well-adjusted adult. This is a path to disaster, you know. Luke, oh, that's terrible. Luke, last year my pops passed from cancer. Sorry to hear that, bro. Since I fought my first fight in MMA, became a supervisor, but I have since fought my first fight in MMA, became a supervisor, but I'd be lying if I say every day I don't think about that MFer. I don't know how to move past it. Been a year, and I don't know how to live without my old man. Anyway, much love. Oh, a year is nothing, bud. A year is nothing. Ready for this one? Next, I didn't even realize this until today. I actually texted BC and our producer about it because it was on my mind. I realized today that next month, so October of 2023, will be 20 years since my mom died. And there are certain times it feels like 20 minutes ago, 20 hours, or 20 days. Dude, it's always going to feel like you don't want to live without them, because you don't. And you're just not going to give that up very easily. We've been over this conversation a million times, but the basic idea is that that pain just doesn't go away. You just build up the resiliency to deal with it. 500 pounds on the deadlift is 500 pounds. That doesn't change. But if you get strong enough to lift it, well, then you're in a good, then there you are. But it remains 500 pounds. Nothing about that ever changes. That's what this is, dude. That's what this is. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm trying to be just a level with you. Obviously, your situation is terrible, and I extend to you my sincerest condolences and deepest sympathies. But that's the reality, bro. It will always be awful. But the good news is, you will have over time the ability to handle that with a little bit more steely-eyed concentration. But yeah, dude, that's going to be real bad for a long time. Dude, fuck me. I mean, 2 years, 3 years into it, I was still 3, 4, 5. Dude, I just drank forever after that. I mean, I drank forever after that. Like 1 year, it feels like, it's a year. Like, when is it going to get better? It's going to be a while. It's going to be a while, dude. So my recommendation is to not focus on when is this going to stop feeling like shit, and more focus on what can I do to create some resiliency and resolve. Because, just think about it, dude. It's illogical to be like, oh, I don't miss my dad anymore. It's illogical. I mean, for certain people that won't be the case, but like in your particular case, that's obviously going to be true. There's never going to be a day where you don't miss this guy. It's never going to happen. So you can't go look for that. You have to look for something else. You have to look. You have to look for sources of strength that build you up, not bring that down to earth. That is what it is. There's a question here about Benoit Saint Denis. So I brought up something on the MK Extra Credit where I said he absorbed a lot of strikes per minute, 5+, and folks have said, well, that's all because of one fight. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, it is true that it is heavily skewed by one fight numerically. That is true. But you combine that with the tape study, and the dude takes hard punches clean a lot. A lot. That one there was a lack of a referee stoppage or intervention, which let that one go way too long, which just led to just a lot of extra difficulty. So again, the point I'm trying to make here about Benoit Saint Denis is, I'm not declaring to you that, I could predict the future, exactly what's happening with him. But this idea like, oh, let's peg him as a future champion, he does not incorporate defense as seriously as he needs to. I was kind of using that number as a shorthand explanation for that, or a shorthand representation of that fact, which is a little bit off. And I understand why people push back against it, but I think the tape is clear on him that even in this last fight, way too willing to sit in mid-range and accept punishment. And, Moises is a good fighter. That's a great win. But in this division, you cannot make trade-offs like that for very long. Do you foresee a time when contracts are more visible? No. Let's see. Ooh, good question. Luke, your favorite style of MMA fighter to watch, just for the pure enjoyment of it? Wrestle boxers, technical kickboxers, Dagestani smother style. Also, if you haven't been to the PNW, I would highly recommend it. Some of the most beautiful places, Pacific Northwest, America has to offer. Dude, I have never been to Seattle. It's like, I cannot believe I've never been there, but I've never been there. So that's depressing. But all right, neither here nor there. For the longest, it was going to be like the jiu-jitsu guy, and then that kind of morphed into the Dagestani guy. And I'd still kind of say it's the Dagestani, wrist control, heavy ground and pound, kind of guy, but it's morphed a little bit more along striking lines these days. The pinpoint accurate striker is the one I kind of like the most. I like Sean O'Malley's game. I mean, his personality is not for me. You know, all his craziness of whatever he does is not for me. But again, just speaking about his game, you're asking about the games of people, and not that like he's a nice guy. Like he's always been nice to me. I like Sean as a in terms of the person I've interacted with. I'm just saying like that kind of the hair and the clothes and all that kind of face tattoos. Like it's not for me. But who gives a fuck? Like it's not my life. It's his. Anyway, neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make is about the game. His game is awesome to watch. That kind of a thing, a real pinpoint. I mean, again, guys, like that with Bud Crawford, like kind of just blew my mind with what he did against Errol Spence. And then you guys see Spence triggered the rematch clause. So we're going to get 2 of them. That kind of thing has really, really taken hold. But in general, it's been grappling based. More recently, kind of Habib style fighter. I'd say that's the guy I typically have liked the most, but that's beginning to change. Who has the best tattoos by division? Damn, motherfucker, I don't know like people's tattoos that well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't know. So I was asking again, if Strickland wins on Saturday, would there be an immediate rematch? Probably. Okay. Luke, I do a lot of running, and friends have got bad injuries preventing them from progressing. What are your top 3 MMA names if they didn't get injured early in their development? Sean O'Malley, injuries and suspension. Do you think any of this different? Jesus, top 3 from injuries. Goddamn, that's a good question. I'd have to think about that one. I can't like the immediate recall of it. You guys have to imagine I'm sleeping like 4 hours a night for like the last forever. My recall has dramatically suffered. I'm not sure. I know guys who have suffered like knockouts early that kind of fucked up their development, or they're like bad losses that fucked up their development. T. Edwards would be one. David Terrell would be another one. There's a few. What was the guy? The Division I heavyweight who won the national title. He fought one time for like Pro Elite or Elite XC, and then was like, "Fuck this." He was training at AKA. He was a Division I national champion. He was like, "Yeah, fuck this." Not about this. There's always kind of a question about Rulon Gardner, that kind of thing, but. That's a weird question. I'm going to skip that one about the like pay in different countries due to globalization. That's a little weird one. Okay, here we go. Luke, where does Flyweight Rose rank among the most misjudged weight changes? I think we don't have enough information to fully declare this. It did not look to me like she was a good fit for it based on this performance. But if you can't make a grip and you can't make a fist to throw in a fight sport, dude, you're pretty fucking limited. That's a major hiccup in the middle of a fight, early in the fight too. It wasn't like it was late 3rd round. It was like early mid or so of the first. I mean, it was a mess for her. So that's just not a great. It wasn't a great look. Based on the look that we did get, did I get a lot of confident feelings that she could physically hang at 125? No, I don't think she's going to be super outskilled, but I can understand some of the other trepidations that folks might have about some of those things. So I think you need to see more. I do. I understand being apprehensive, but definitive seems to me premature. No. Ooh, that's interesting. Luke, what would your thoughts be if Demetrious Johnson came back to bantamweight to fight Sugar Sean? DJ has said he's been thinking about retiring in MMA unless he feels motivated to go through big training camps. Given Sean's star power and DJ's legacy in MMA, this could draw big numbers, not to mention Henry Cejudo being a cornerman and adding more eyeballs. So when DJ fought Dominic Cruz. It was here in DC, down there at the Verizon Center. I was there cage side for it. And, you know, what you really saw there was DJ is not a good fit for 135. Now, I know everyone's at 135 now, up at 1, so it's a little bit different. I think he's obviously gotten way better since that time, and Cruz was able to win that with wrestling, which Sugar Sean would not win that with wrestling if he were to win. But if Aljamain Sterling is having trouble getting him down, I would imagine DJ would too. DJ is good everywhere, but he probably is not going to win a fight on the feet. The point I'm trying to make is he's fighting good, tough, like very respectable opponents in one. And what he did in the B.R.I.C.S, the last fight, the one in Denver, it was just amazing what he's been able to do. And then testing himself even against brown belts in the Masters IBJJF tournament was spectacular. But I think it would go poorly for him if he went against the very best bantamweights in the world today as a more natural flyweight. So I understand that he is better, that he has shown, I think, better ability against bigger guys than he did at the time which he fought Dominic Cruz. But I don't ultimately think that it would change his fortunes if he were to return. I think he should do what he wants, but if he comes back to the UFC, I think it would be, I don't think it would go all that well. Let's see. Luke, a long-time listener, first-time commenter. With Izzy's recent comments on UFC 300, right? He wants to compete there. It seems like all the stars want to be on that card. Who do you think UFC would like to have a headline, co-headline? Assuming double retirement in November. Conor, O'Malley, Izzy, Volk. Yeah, you got it. They would throw some women on there as well. You know, they would probably have... I don't know what's going to happen with Grasso and Shevchenko, but one of those titles, Suarez maybe fighting at 115 for the belt or whatever. But yeah, they're going to have the Conor one is hard to say because like Conor doesn't fight with other people and share Rev on the card. So if that is in play, then I don't know what you're going to do. But basically, everyone else you mentioned, I think they would line up in just the way you're talking about it. Yeah, I don't have like a specific script to follow at this point. But yes, any of their preeminent megastars they would want to put on it. Oh man, no! What the fuck? Luke, did you see Jon Jones's brother Chandler write out a paper titled "I used to think my idols were crazy" with how all over the place it seemed, as well as his recent post? I think he may be going through something related to CTE or mental health issues. Danny V in Thailand. Yeah, man, I have not followed this, but I've been seeing the headlines. So Chandler Jones is having some problems and has been beefing with the Raiders. So Arthur Jones played for the Ravens for a time, but he had a PD suspension and his career never recovered. He's out of the league. But Chandler is a fucking beast and has been a beast for quite some time. Oh, yeah, look at this shit. Chandler Jones says Raiders sent crisis team to his home. Yeah, not money. Not money. Shitballs. Well, look at these ads. Jones showed a picture of an expired badge belonging to a member of the Vegas CRT and wrote, "Raiders sent her to my place. You need to come with us. You're in danger," with a laughing face emoji. They had me outside in my drawers, LOL, naked. The lady was rude. Then I got to showing her some of them text, and then she switched up. Buddy from the Raiders tried to get me to give me the look, like don't say anything. Now I understand why players turn to social media. At first I frowned upon it, but it's our only outlet. If I didn't do this, it would have been kept under wraps. Anybody interview them and ask them why I'm not on the team because I don't know. Damn. Jones, who missed a handful of practices late in training camp for an undisclosed reason, also posted a screenshot of an alleged August 18 text exchange with Raiders coach Josh McDaniels, in which Jones later said, "I won't share anything else if the Raiders let him play in Sunday's season opener at the Denver Broncos. Y'all see how Buddy talked to me like I'm an item. LMAO, look at my text and look at his." Jones also posted a video of himself winning reps in joint practice with the San Francisco 49ers. He's just 33 still. God damn. Entering a second season on a 3-year, $51 million free agent contract with the Raiders, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, apparently he's having a mental episode or not. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but something is an issue. Yeah, and then McDaniel says, quote, "We've never really gone into those kinds of things, so I'm going to steer away from that," end quote. I hope he's okay. I don't know, but that sounds bad. That doesn't sound money. Talk about a sport with head injuries and shit. Like, who knows? All right, clear that off. There we go. All right, yeah, let's get to this crazy ass story. Here we go. Hey, Luke. Here we go. I would like to know what you think about the Izzy Dog situation. Yeah, well, he was tweeting through it today. Do you think it could be enough to distract him from Sean Strickland? No. Also, if he does somehow lose immediate rematch. Yeah, everyone's asking about the immediate rematch. Again, one more time on the immediate rematch. I don't think if he were to lose and it were to be completely fair and reasonable, then I don't think he should be getting a rematch. But I suspect that if it were to happen, he would. Okay. So what do I think about the dog situation? You know, one of the situations where when it becomes your news cycle, you're like, I don't know how you can't look at that and be like, what have I done with my life? That this is a thing I have to now like, I'm a 44-year-old man on his podcast being like, do MMA fighters jack off their dogs? I mean, just saying it, you're like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever had. Who the fuck? Okay. I saw the video. It's an old video. Like that thing had surfaced a long time ago. I guess, here's one thing I could say for sure. People are fucking bored with this fight. So like they got to find something to give a fuck about. So I think that's partly it. It is weird. I mean, it's weird. I mean, folks, if you got dogs, don't touch your dog like that, please. Like, don't fucking do that, And I mean, do I need to tell people not to do that? Like, obviously, don't fucking do that. And yeah, it's fucking weird, dude. He's a weird guy. He's a weird guy. He does weird shit. And then I don't even think that's the full story because Sean Strickland, apparently, I saw some screenshots. I'm not verified, but I saw some screenshots floating around where he admitted on like Instagram stories to like killing a dog, or he regretted it. But it's like, dude, what the fuck is going on here? The whole thing is just awful. Yeah, dude, Izzy's a weird dude. It's weird and it's gross. And of course it's, you can't defend, like people are like, I can't believe we have to have this fucking combo. People are turning into like, Izzy bangs dogs. Well, calm down here, moral panic. I don't think it's quite that, but like, fondling your dog, however humorous you might imagine that to be, probably not a good idea. Probably not. I mean, I can't even imagine it would occur to most people to like have to like resist the urge to do that. Don't do that shit. Like respect your dog's bodily autonomy to the extent that, short of pulling the tennis ball out of their mouth or whatever, you should respect their body autonomy. Yeah, it's fucking weird. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like the whole thing is bizarre, candidly. And then he was leaning into it today. Did you guys see the tweets? At first, I didn't even know what the fuck people were talking about and then I caught up on the story, and then and then he was tweeting through it like, here's this dog doing this thing around me. Here's this dog doing that. And then he turned it into like a John Wick thing. Like I just can't believe I'm 44 and this is the shit I have to talk about on a Thursday. Like nothing says that people are, yes, that shit's gross and weird. I mean, obviously, but on top of it, like people are like really interested in this. And I'm like, man, if you're really interested in this, you're a dumb motherfucker. Like it's weird and it's worth, examining enough to make sure crimes aren't being committed. But more than that, I don't really know what to say except the motherfuckers in this sport are weird as shit, But like that's the other part too. It's like, don't get me wrong, like you can't defend it. It's fucking gross and weird. But if you went to the cops with that video in Auckland, you'd be like, yo, I got proof that this guy is abusing dogs. And they'd be like, all right, let's see it. And then you showed them that. They'd tell you to get the fuck out of the office. They would. This is not enough to like criminally convict someone, however weird and bizarre it might be. So I'm with you all that. I saw that. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, don't do that. Like, that's like, what are we doing here? But I would if we don't have to go into like, is this a crime territory? What's the famous saying? The unexamined life is not worth living. I would rather spend my time once we can check that off the box, or rather, what am I saying? Once we can remove that as a concern, is it a crime or not? I mean, I guess this was a long time ago and the dog is now deceased, but I can't believe I have to fucking talk about this shit. It's like, so it just I don't know how as an MMA fan you can't be embarrassed that this is the fucking discourse on Fight Week. right? Like, this is embarrassing for the sport that this is a thing that is coming up in press conferences. I sort of understand it, but like the whole thing is just, it's a weird look for him. It's a bad look in many ways. It's a bad look for the sport. It's a weird look for the sport. It's gross. Why are we talking about this any more than we have to? Like, this is the shit we got to talk about? People's dogs' dicks? What? What are we doing? What are we doing? How old are we? You know, I mean, how old are we, folks? How old are we? So, you know, listen, I don't know why anyone would be compelled to do weird ass shit like that, but I don't know. It's weird and gross, dude. It's weird and gross. It's weird and gross. There's really no two ways about it. Yeah. Pretty fucking stupid that my life has amounted to this. That on that September 7th, 2023, gray-haired, I'm looking at you being like, well, let's talk about this guy's dog's dick and to what extent it was fondled. I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like what has happened to my life that this is the topic that I have to, you know, this is the topic du jour. Like, oh. Also, it's just like off-putting to even have a conversation about it, you know. So I think everyone should probably calm down a little bit, but at the same time, yeah, man. But like, you know, Izzy, even this week, he was like, yeah, if I have kids, they're going to be homeschooled. Not a great idea. Not a great idea. And, you know, if I recall correctly, he's expressed support for like Andrew Tate and stuff like that. Like, he's got a lot of, dude, all of these guys have just crazy. You know what's kind of funny? I was thinking about this the other day, irrespective of this situation. Like, it's kind of funny that a lot of these fighters get done with their career and they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about like running for office. And that, like, dude, you have seen examples where that has worked out actually on a smaller level. But it's like, these MMA fighters often don't realize that they have views that are far outside the mainstream or what is even electable, even in a, you know, very partisan primary situation. Like, to say nothing of like to what extent they understand the mechanisms of government and what the responsibility would be. More than that, it's like, here is the, like, what's the core set of ideas that the vast majority of Americans would support? Like, okay, to what extent do a lot of the ideas espoused by retiring MMA fighters match that? It's not a lot of overlap. It's not a lot of overlap. They believe in and do a lot of weird shit, and it's all in various degrees and in various different places a little distressing. If you've got a good idea about what to do about it, you know, let me know. I certainly fucking don't. You know. That's a weird question, but something that tickles you, something that you think of and can't help but laugh at, no matter how long ago it was or how silly it is. What is up with these questions? I mean, there was one time in 29 Palms, we were heading out for a CAX, combined arms exercise, and we were sleeping in these like Quonset huts. If you've ever been out to, anyone who's a Marine's ever been out to 29 Palms, there's there's the base itself, and then you drive out a little bit further, and there's like this staging base. And in the staging base, they have like a PX or like a mini PX, like a restaurant. You can get beers there when you come back and stage. But, you know, you sleep in like these Quonset huts, like these metal huts that are all like this. They're long, and they're like the foundation is actually dug into the ground. So when you go in them, you actually go not underground, but a little bit below ground level. And this one time, this Marine was like, we had to sleep because we had the next day we had to go out into the field. This motherfucker was snoring. I mean, sawing logs. And I was like, dude, no, I'm just not playing this. And it ended up being like an officer, like a field grade officer. And I took a handful of sand underneath my cot. I had a cot, and I just fucking chucked that shit and hit him right in the face with it. And he was bitter. He was bitter, but he stopped snoring. He actually moved huts. You know, one of those things where you got to be there to be there. But the joy I took in throwing a handful of sand in that fucker's face for snoring, Makes me happy. Ooh. If Sean beats Izzy, where would it stand on top upsets in MMA? So what is Izzy? Like a minus? Let's see. Izzy is a... Here we go. God damn. Minus 700 in certain places. Plus 5. I mean, it wouldn't be Ronda Rousey-esque. I'm going to guess top 10, maybe even top 5. Probably closer to top 10. The question is not so much in upsets in all of MMA betting, but in title fights. It'd probably be top 5 or top 10. Again, if Sean beats Izzy, okay, let's go to this one. Look, it seems at least to me that Jon Jones is not long for the sport. With that being said, the 3 top contenders that come to mind if he departs are Aspinall, Pavlovich, and Gane. Do you see one asserting themselves as the dominant heavyweight, or do you think, yeah, no, there's definitely going to be a pecking order. I slept on Pavlovich for the longest. It might be him. Gane, I think, still has some work to do, so I don't really know how that one's going to go. But Pavlovich has weaknesses too. There will be a pecking order, but like what's exciting about the current state of them is that they all kind of do slightly. Not Aspinall and Gane are more alike. Obviously, Pavlovich is more like the heavy hitter, but he's not quite the athlete that those two guys are, and not as well rounded, I don't think, as Aspinall. So Aspinall might be the leader, but he kind of, he's a little bit doing this when he competes too. So we'd have to see. More questions about Izzy's weird ass behavior. Okay. Luke, some people seem to say or imply that PFL acquiring Bellator will be a huge game changer, but just thinking of it objectively, there really aren't any cross-promotional matchups I've been, quote, dying to see between Bellator and PFL. Most of the cross-promotional matchups I want to see between Bellator's 135ers and 45ers versus UFC's. Yes. Aside from maybe Harrison versus Cyborg, are there really any cross-promotional matchups between PFL and Bellator that you as an MMA fan are dying to see, that you feel will help make the PFL must-see should they eventually acquire Bellator? Or is the hope that the PFL would just be able to market AJ's, Pitbulls, and Usmans and other top Bellator fighters better than Bellator? No. You're right that, the real game changer would be getting access to the guys who move the needle on pay-per-view. The Sean O'Malley's, the Izzy's, eventually the Aspinalls or whoever, pick your guy, pick whoever that is. The McGregor's, that's the goal. The goal is to get access to those guys, the proven draws on pay-per-view, or at least the guys who at a bare minimum, command attention in that space. The purchase of Bellator is significant because one, the main point about purchasing Bellator is how much it fortifies the roster. Because right now PFL has a bunch of guys that people just don't necessarily know. And of course, that doesn't change overnight by acquiring Bellator, but now you have a much more fleshed out bantamweight division, a much more fleshed out featherweight, lightweight division, 170 to an extent. Their light heavyweight division is one of the best in the world in Bellator, if not the best. Like, it's really, really good. So it gives you roster depth and quality to do the kind of deal that the deals that PFL wants. They want to do. Everyone wants to copy the UFC. They want to do similar kinds of margins, similar kinds of content, and so it gives them the ability to produce that kind of content with a much healthier version of the product. It's not just hey, they got Shane Burgos here, they got OAM there, that's cool, but then what about next week and it's a bunch of people you don't know? No, now it's got a little bit more life to it. They can do a little bit more with it. They can play. It gives them the ability to produce this content factory in a much more nimble and forthright way. It doesn't change their fortunes insofar as what they really need is the access to the premier end of the drawing talent. So no, it's a two-part problem they would have to solve. But giving the fighters a clear number two to be like, okay, this is what's the Pepsi to the Coke here? It would make them that. Now, again, I keep hearing that they want to do the brands separately, which if anyone from PFL is watching, please don't fucking do that. You are wasting your time and everyone else's time doing that. Please don't fucking do that. What a gigantic mistake that would be. Burning money to just burn money. Don't do that. The Bellator IP, I don't know how much value that has, but I don't know. I don't think it has a whole lot. But the roster has a tremendous amount of value for the reasons aforementioned. The library has a tremendous amount of value for any number of obvious reasons, like really using that. And then I think relaxing some of their tournament format. That's the way they have to go. That's the future. That's the path. That's the key. But just buying, we're going to keep brands separate. Motherfucker, for what? For what? I mean, there might be some kind of play where they can get more in television rights by having separate brands, which might explain that reasoning. But if there's not that to it, then it's utterly pointless and frankly counterproductive. Don't do that shit. Don't. It's a waste of everyone's time. Thoughts on the pay-per-view numbers for this card? Ooh, poor. 253, if that. I mean, poor. Yeah, it's Luke. It seems to me that many people think Izzy has the hometown advantage in Australia. I, as an Australian, am almost certain the crowd will favor Strickland, as Israel's from New Zealand. Yep. Do you think this could potentially work in Sean's favor? Yeah, I mean, listen, MMA fans like that Sean Strickland type. You know, he's not exactly like Don Fry, but like that straight talking, you know, beer guzzling. I ride motorcycles, and you know, I've got engine grease on my hands, and you know, I don't ride in fancy jets, and I tell it how it is. They love that guy. They love that guy. Doesn't matter if he's American or whatever. I think he had the Crocodile Dundee hat on, right? So that's what they like. That's what they like. And Izzy is very much not that, you know, for better or for worse, he is not that. So I get it. I don't really understand the Australian-New Zealand rivalry, but not rivalry. I don't quite get them. I don't understand the contours of that relationship very well. So I don't really know what to say about that, but I get that he won't have like, you know, oh, he's from this part of the world, and so we'll naturally just cheer for him. Like, it doesn't work that way. MMA fans, this is what sort of tells you like MMA fans are kind of all the same. I'm obviously overstating it, but you can go anywhere and it's kind of the same type of dude that they like no matter what, you know. Or at a bare minimum, this is not the only guy that they like, type of guy. I want to be very clear about that. It's, you know, because you can get, they also like the Lyoto Machida types and stuff like that too. But they really rally around this, like, you know, a guy who fashions himself anyway, sort of like a blue collar truth teller, unafraid, right? They really, really gravitate to that, which is often a white guy, but not always. They really like that. They're like that blue collar, tell it like it is, hard work, says outrageous shit. They've always dug that, and I think they always will. And the fact that guy can cross borders and that format still works kind of tells you the commonality of fan preference, even across type. Is there really a difference in comparison to I was watching trying to find a good one here. Let's see. Is there a good one here? Okay. Yeah, we can do this one and I'll get to some of the paid stuff. If you could interview Sean Strickland, what question would you like a serious answer to, either personally or as a fighter? I tell you what, I mean, I'm not personally all that interested in the, you know, I would ask about the thing he's an expert in. He's an expert in fighting. I think he's got some interesting ideas about that. I would talk to him about that. and maybe more than that, like I think, really digging into the upbringing, his personal story, him telling his life to you, that could actually be very interesting. And again, he's an expert in fighting. I could, am I to presume that I couldn't learn something from him about fighting by talking to him? Of course I could. So yeah, like in a situation where that would ever happen, that would probably be what I would lean on. But it would require him to want to talk about those things in a earnest way. And a lot of fighters want to use media opportunities for that, but then other stuff too. And I understand that that's their right. But if that's what it was going to be, then I wouldn't be all that interested in it, candidly. Again, guys, like, the unexamined life is not worth living. Like, if we're not going to do that, then what the fuck are we doing, right? All right, let's see what you got for the pay questions. Again, if you don't want to, that's cool too. I don't mind. It is what it is. All right. Kathleen says, thoughts on the Barstool layoff? I don't know. So my understanding was they had this deal with this gambling company that they sold a large share of the company of. They buy it back, and then he immediately lays off 100 employees. Now, I think the takeaway that I would have from all of this is that Barstool was kind of held up as we've got this model, this online model. It's actually distressing. We've got this model that works, that makes money. And again, I think in a smaller scaled version, they can make money. But this idea that Barstool was above the Vices or the Voxes, or because there was a bit of a political, or certainly a cultural divide between them. We're not going to make the same mistakes that those guys make. We've got a better touch on what works. I think that it can work in perhaps a smaller version of itself. But the reality is, show me a media company who isn't struggling. That's the fucking takeaway. Show me a media company who isn't struggling. And it doesn't matter if you got the Barstool model, the Vice model, the HuffPost model, the whatever. They all seem to be eating shit, right? So it's kind of distressing. I'm still waiting for someone to come along and have be a big company and make a splash, and not just live off venture capital money, but really prove it. Hey, this is the model. You can follow this model and you can win. And again, there are smaller versions of that, but a big version, no one can figure it out. No one can seem to make money. It's frightening, actually. Super Dave says, Luke, I'm picking up a very timid 1-year-old German Shepherd from the shelter today. Any advice to keep him and my cat from killing each other? Dude, I had a buddy. I won't say who it is, but I had a buddy who had a dog he brought home from the shelter, and it mauled his cat. The cat lived. Cat's all right, but had to lose an arm, or a leg, I guess. Its front right leg it had to lose. And so I've never had to deal with a dog being aggressive with a cat. I would not know what to say about that. I've taken dogs home from the shelter. That's true. But they were when I picked up Barbas, we picked up Barbas from the shelter. That's where we got that fucking guy. But when we picked him, we asked him, was he good with cats? And they actually had tested him out and he was fine. So beyond that, dude, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. My friend Miles is considering a career in MMA. What do you think of his proposed ring name? If you want to get booed, it's a right-wing sport, ladies and gentlemen. Have you tried cutting out caffeine? Yes. Not completely. I have to have caffeine in the morning, but not past 2. He says, Cody says, I was a chronic caffeine user in my early 20s and slept 3 hours a night. Now that I have only a cup in the morning, I sleep great usually. Yeah, guys, the stress is beating the fuck out of me. It's beating the fuck out of me. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's where I'm at. How true is B.R.I.C.S? This is the sort of organization that's forming from Brazil and India and Iran. I don't know if Iran's in it, but this sort of India, China, South Africa, right? Creating a currency that will make U.S. worry as currency low as 1 equal to their 55. Is it something to worry about? I would really not imagine that it would be. Not now. It's more interesting as a geopolitical alliance than an alternative to the hegemony of the dollar, as I understand it. Thoughts on Izzy diddling a dog on camera and following dog corn account? Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, dude, kind of went over this one. He's a fucking weirdo, He's a fucking weirdo. He's a great fighter, but he's a fucking weirdo. Has the arrival of Bellingham filled the hole that Benzema and Ronaldo left? So far, Lee in Taiwan, soon to be a 38-year-old first-time father. Hey, good luck, Lee. Good luck, dude. You'll be fine. You won't sleep very much, but you'll be fine. Yeah, dude, he's been unbelievable. I had high hopes for the guy. He's been ridiculously good. Ridiculously good. So it's a long season. We shall see. But holy shit, he has been a revelation. What's the next meta technique after calf kicks? I think some of the changes to jiu-jitsu is a big one. The Craig Jones changes, the pinning versus the sort of the typical meta. Like the meta of jiu-jitsu is changing. So like that's changing. Elbows might be something you might see more of standing. I think ground and pound will change a little bit as well. And yeah, those three. Those three. This dude says, thanks, Luke. Thank you, bro. Please, please, please. I hope to God on everything Dennis drops out so we can get a real fight. Boy, I tell you, if Dennis drops out of that fight and Logan Paul has to fight Mike Perry, God help him. Mike Perry will fucking send his head into the third row. Mike Perry will fuck him up. I mean, who disagrees with that, right? I mean, come on. Mike Perry, I mean, I'm not even like wishing it on the guy. I'm just speaking objectively. If they make that fight, betting on Mike Perry is free money. Free money. Free money if Mike Perry gets that call. I would honestly feel bad for Logan if they made that. I mean, not really, but you know, a little bit. I'd be like, oof, this is gonna be Mike Perry's about to send this dude into the to the land of wind and ghosts. Make no mistake about it. Favorite Postobon flavor, manzana. If Volkov wins and Stipe wins in 2 months, okay. Is that not a great main event for UFC 300? Volkov versus Stipe? Fuck no, that's not a great main event. That's kind of a one. No. Sean has said he is going to, quote, give it to the gods to win. Is Sean going to sacrifice a piece of himself in the altar of athletic glory to win, but take the damage that could affect him going forward? Talking about Sean O'Malley? Yeah, he might. He might. I think that's what you mean, unless I'm misunderstanding. My siblings and I are coming to DC soon. What restaurant should we hit up? We'd like to try different unique things, maybe a Colombian restaurant. The Colombian restaurants here are only good if you want to pay a shit ton of money, which I don't recommend at all. Okay, easy ones. Duke's Grocery, like Duke Rufus. Duke's Grocery is an easy one. La Diplomat is another easy one. Barcelona is another easy one. These are kind of all co-located. Maidan is another easy one. Zaytuna, Zaytinya, how the fuck they say it? The Jose Andres place. Jaleo is another one you could go to. What else? Fuck, there's a bunch of good ones. You could go. There's a Balkan restaurant, Ambar, Ambar. It's in Barracks Row. Phenomenal. You ever had Balkan food? That shit is delicious. That's real good. You can go to delis like Call Your Mother. Call Your Mother is amazing. The Sweet Lobby for the best cupcakes in town. Joselito for like really good Spanish. District Taco for just a good burrito bowl. Like, there you go, bro. Take this, and I got you covered. We're good to go. You can go to the Wharf. The Wharf's got a ton of good shit. I've not been to the Gordon Ramsay. Oh, you want a sick burger? How about a sick burger? This is for anybody who comes to town. Go to Lucky Buns. Lucky Buns. Oh, dude, one of the best burgers you'll ever have. I mean, amazing. Lucky Buns. You cannot go wrong. And also there is Mi Vida, an amazing Mexican restaurant. Like, I got you, folks. I got you. All right, look, if a champ from Muay Thai came to the UFC with great takedown defense, would they beat most of the UFC fighters they face? Izzy was a glory contender and a UFC champion. Aldo Anderson had Muay Thai background. Yeah, probably. I mean, a lot of this would depend on specifics, but you've seen like Muay Thai champs go into boxing and win world titles. Why couldn't they do that in MMA if they had good takedown defense? Yes, they could. The question is like, do they want to? And you know, how would they get the good takedown defense? Because like to be a Muay Thai champ, you probably have to be all in on Muay Thai. But yes, you could do it that way. So yes, I think that they could. Under that, if you could find that kind of dynamic, it would be yes, I think they could win. Just the issue ends up being, how are you going to get a guy who's like a Muay Thai champ who's got sufficient kind of wrestling at that stage in their career? That's the part where it gets a little, I don't know who exists like that. Why is the MMA media ignoring Izzy's behavior with his dog? I mean, how many times are we going to fucking talk about it on this podcast? Like, what do you want me to say? I don't even know. Like, yeah, don't do that shit. It's gross and weird. Like, I mean, you're getting all of the talk about Izzy's dog's hog that you can stomach here today. Well, I mean, why are the other sites or whoever not talking about it? Probably because they think it's stupid, which it is. I mean, it's fucking stupid. And also because it's gross, and also because I think anything like, dude, if you're going to have a editorial slant where you pinpoint every awful thing an MMA fighter says or does, you would never be able to go to sleep. You would just have to constantly work, because they say and do crazy shit. Like, not all of it is the same. That's not my point. But rather, like, if that was your editorial slant. So they take the opposite editorial slant, which is they only talk about the stuff that they really kind of have to. And I think that if you're feeling like they're not, they probably feel like they don't have to. That's a guess. I kind of try to field this stuff here so that it can get aired, but I don't know. Here's more of it. You guys are very interested in discussing this topic. Luke, hope you're doing good. Izzy is one of the greats, but that touching a dog thing is strange. Yeah. Why are MMA fighters so weird sometimes? Dude, you got to be a little bit, I'm not defending any one particular act or viewpoint, but rather, like, in order to do that job, you got to be a little bit off. Like, Uriah Faber's pretty down to earth. It's not a universal rule, certainly, but I mean, dude, I think to be in this job, like, dude, to think if you're loving this media cycle, it's a 100% chance you're a virgin. And like, I can understand wanting to engage with the topic because you find it off-putting and like you're trying to like do your due diligence. Fine. But like, if you think it's like, this is like really interesting, you've never made a woman come. Like, it's not possible. Like, this is the most absurdly fucking stupid thing on earth, however gross and off-putting it quite genuinely can be. I'm not saying that this person who left the donation necessarily feels that way. Again, I understand a initial curiosity about it, but at some point you're just like, oh my God. Anyway, but dude, you got to be a little bit off to do this job. You do. Like, it's a difficult, weird job that recruits tough, weird people who have unusual ideas. I mean, they fight in a cage for a living, and they have to go do press conferences for the world, and they got to share their life. It's a weird job, dude. It's a really weird occupation. So you're gonna draw strange folks as a consequence. Oluwadana White. Okay, all right. Jeff, thank you, Jeff. Hans. What kind of things do UFC matchmakers look at when putting fights together? Availability, what they're owed, not like monetarily, but like, did we promise this guy who's available? Again, you got to look at, they're building a calendar, and how do those pieces fit into the calendar? Also, they tend to want to balance not having too much of one division on one. If we're going to bring a title fight at 145 here, where do we need to bring a title fight for 155? Where does that make sense? So it's really about balancing headlining needs. It's about balancing the cards needs, who is owed a fight, that kind of a thing. And they just sort of build it out with these sort of, and again, a lot of it is just who's available. And like, they build up these competing cards, essentially. Thank you for everything. Your content is magical. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. Simon says, I had the same issue waking at 3 a.m. like clockwork, focused on sleep hygiene, no difference. I was very unhappy at work. Once I got a new job, I slept better. Wow. Am I unhappy at work? Could be. How they're talking about the genitalia of dogs all day. It'll do it to you. Hope you figure it out, mate. Yeah, you might be right, bro. You might be right. You might be fucking right. My guy, Ant Evans. I always thought Izzy was a... Okay, that's good. That's good. I've always thought Izzy was a Paw Man's Anderson Silva. Yeah, that's good. Well done. You got to laugh for me. Well done. What pound did you get BC from? Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. You guys are good with the jokes today. All right. I'm loving this. Han. Thank you, Han. Jose, favorite book of all time. Shitballs. Fiction, Sound and the Fury. Nonfiction. That's a tougher one. Nonfiction. That's a tougher one. I'm not sure nonfiction. I've got so many I would have to pick from. Do you see Volk putting on a masterclass on Ilia? If the Volk that showed up against Yair is there, yes. But I keep waiting for him to for age to kind of push him over that, So if he can avoid that, I think he'll be okay. But if Volk is still in his relative prime when he fights Ilia, he should beat Ilia. But we'll see what happens. I meant Sean Strickland. I don't know what this was from. Sorry, dude. Message me if I can get a better answer for you. Thoughts about the press conference? Cop going crazy. Yeah, reminded me of the Lee Chiesa fight. Was the press conference better than expected? It was fine. I thought it was, okay. Shouts to Aaron Bronstetter. Let me show you this. Because he had a am I gonna be able to pull this up? Yeah. Hold on. Look at this. What the fuck? No. Hold on. God damn it. I can't pull this thing up. Oh, you know what I can do? I got it. Here. Let me show you this. So, I'm getting this from Aaron Bronson. I want to give him credit, but this was the issue that he had highlighted. Here we go. Look, he competed in 2021. He missed weight, which is what this means, by the way. And then he beat Zhalgas Zhumagulov, knocked him out in the first. Was supposed to have a fight against Sumadarji, canceled. Supposed to have a fight against Rogerio Bontorin, canceled. Wins against David Dvorak, that's in 2022. Was supposed to have a fight in, March of this year, canceled. Davison Figueiredo, July, canceled. Kai Kara France, this one, canceled. And so he gets this one last minute notice. And so you're you can understand why a guy would be, not chucking shit necessarily, but why he'd be pissed and short fuse. He seems like a short tempered guy anyway, but I can get it, man. He's been fucked over, not by any fault of his own, just by guys getting injuries. And, these guys can't fight. He can't fight. He can't make his money. I get it. I get being pissed off about that. I'm baffled by Dana criticizing DDP for not taking the fight. Does he want a repeat of Aljo versus TJ? Fighters are rarely at 100%, but if they're seriously compromised, you get one-sided ordeal. I mean, part of it obviously is this just desire to put guys in positions to not want to say no. Hey, you say no, there's consequences. And they don't make it oh, we're not going to pick you. The way they frame it is, hey, the sport passes you by. And that's true to some extent. If you're out a while, the sport just kind of does pass you by. The title has to stay in rotation. The champ needs a challenger. That's a real thing. If the timeline is long enough. But at the same point, it's if you're a number one contender, these guys have to murder themselves to get to these points. They don't want to take title fights all fucked up. Would you? It's very easy to be I'll take the fight when you're banged up, just be tough and grit it out. But dude, you're fighting the champion, whatever weight class it is, whether it's DDP at 185 or any other weight. If you're fighting in a championship fight, do you want to fight under those circumstances? Of course not. You're fuck, dude, I need a chance to get right. And they wait until they earn what they feel is hey, I've climbed the mountain, I'm undeniable, I want to keep this spot. And I understand that. It's just that, the matchmaker and the promoter has significant control over this whole situation. And it's I don't know. What is the right answer? I think the right answer is probably focusing on your long-term health, but dude, they have a content schedule and that schedule has to be met. The demands have to be met. The fights have to be there. Again, one of the most important things, people act what's one thing you can really do for the UFC if you're a fighter? Stay healthy, stay ready. That is so valuable to them. Stay healthy, stay ready. Based on the way they have designed their product and how they sell that product, for media rights and everything else. Like, they need guys who are ready to go. They don't haggle. They're not. And dude, like, to that point, like, Izzy's been an Iron Man. Like, he's constantly in rotation. Like, he slowed down a little bit since the last couple of years or whatever. But like, when he was first a Contender, he was like roaring through. Conor McGregor taking fights at a steady clip. Dude, that's what they love. They love guys who do that, and took the fight against Chad Mendez all fucked up, So that's what they're looking for. And it's because that's what the product really, really needs. But like, if your neck is messed up, if your back is messed up, I understand, like, valuing your long-term health. I wish there was a fairer process. It's just, this is not where we're at. Luke, does the rematch clause require Spence Crawford fight at 147? I believe Spence gets to pick, right? The loser gets to pick the weight class. Yes, I think that's right. Can Crawford decline if Spence wants to be up a weight class? No. I think the way it worked was loser who triggers it gets to pick the weight class. So I think it's going to be 154. I mean, is there going to be a different result? I have no fucking clue. Hard to see how that one goes. It definitely can't go much worse, right? Oh, here we go. Strickland said he was going to get. Oh, Sean Strickland. Oh, sorry. Give it to the gods to beat Izzy. Sorry. Could he suffer a beating that might alter his career going forward? No. It's the guys who are like super durable and resistant. Like, I'm not saying he's not tough. He's obviously tough as shit, but he doesn't have like John Lineker chin. He doesn't have otherworldly durability. He's got like normal for a prize fighter durability. So I don't think it would, like, the beatings you have to worry about are like the highly vicious KOs. That could be one, Jessica I getting like torn up with that head kick by Shevchenko. But the one I really worry about is not just that. That has often more psychological components, although concussion can play a role, but it often has psychological components. The one that makes you worried is not that one. The one that makes you worried is when they take a sustained beating over time. Right, what's round after round after round of just like 10-8, 10-8, 10-8. That's when you're like, oh, dude, somebody put a fucking stop to this, And then nobody does. Like, this is a title fight. Like, we don't want to stop them. And it's like, okay, dude, like, well, let's see how this guy looks when he's 50 and he can't find his car keys. Luke, I heard a rumor, must be true, that Dana added a part to UFC contracts for any. Okay, so okay, let me clarify this one. Heard a rumor that Dana added a part to UFC contracts where any business fighters make out of the UFC, but while still under UFC contract, UFC gets a cut. Is this true? So the way to understand this is it could be true. Here's what I mean by that. You're like, well, what does that mean? It is a legal interpretation. Nobody actually knows. Some lawyers have looked at a certain provision in the contract and say that it could be interpreted that way. That doesn't mean UFC has done it or is going to do it or or also believes that they have a contractual right to it. There's nothing in the contract that says if you open a business in the UFC as an independent contractor while you're here with us, we get a cut of it. That's not what it says. It's much more convoluted language. And so there's like this kind of lawyerly interpretation, but other lawyers disagree and don't think that's the case. So it remains unclear, but it's just a question of what would the UFC do if they do interpret it in a way that gives them license to do that? They have not exercised it. They may not view it that way. It's a legal interpretation. And that sounds like fuzzy math, or to borrow from George W. Bush, like, well, what does that really mean? It might mean nothing. It probably means nothing. There was a lot of like fervor about it, but when you really begin to examine it, it's just an interpretation from a certain group of lawyers that other lawyers may not share, UFC may not share, in which case all of this is a moot point. So really it becomes a question of, let's just see what the UFC does. And I suspect that they won't do that because now you're blurring the line between independent contractor and employee in ways that is kind of crazy. All right. Are we done? I think we're done. Hey, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you got out of this chat what you wanted. I don't know if you did. Hey, wish me luck on getting some sleep tonight. That would be great. I would be super, super happy if I could get some sleep tonight. But we shall see. We shall see. All right. Podcast will go up tonight. All that good stuff. But yeah, we're done here for today. So thanks to Othello, thanks to Aunt Evans, thanks to all you guys for being here. I greatly appreciate it. You can always email me, LukeThomasNews@gmail.com. And until next time, stay frosty.